Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the BBC. This BBC has nothing to do with Britain. This is the BBC, the Big Buccaneer Channel, as in the Oceanside Pirates and Buccaneer Beach. Welcome to the BBC, the Oceanside Station.
Coming to you from a car-sized drone hovering over Buccaneer Beach, this is the Oceanside Station, the Big Buccaneer Channel, www.osidebbc.com. This is episode 36 for April 9th, 2025, and today we're going to be having a return guest, Dmitriy Demidov, and he's going to be talking about his role as a youth hockey coach and about how he says the city is not treating him or his kids or his teams very well. So we're going to find out from him what that's all about. Also, we're going to be telling you about a restaurateur who started serving food to locals in 1982. He took some time off, and now he's back in the saddle, reopening his restaurant here in Oceanside. Have some bad news. Seals are, in fact, dying on our beaches in the last few weeks. We're going to be talking about that. A new skate park opened in Oceanside, and we also have news of a cafe, a restaurant that is closing its doors, and this is kind of big news, on April the 14th. We're going to be talking about that towards the end of the show. And also, we've got our happy hour segment. We're going to be going to 333 Pacific. Of course, that's the place owned by the Cone Restaurant Group, overlooking the pier. And for our meter reader, we're going to be, this is sort of an editorial portion of the show, and we're going to be talking about what my thoughts are, someone who was born and raised in Oceanside, growing right up next door to the USMC Camp Pendleton, and how we view the Corps is being treated by President Donald Trump. Now, here's the news. The lifeguards have reported that our beaches, including the beaches around the pier, the harbor, and in South Oceanside, have in fact been impacted increasingly over the last 2 weeks by seals that have died or that are very sick. And this problem is getting worse, and of course it has to do with the fact that our waters are impacted by the toxic algae bloom that has enveloped our coast. And yes, a couple of seals have died on our beaches. Whether they have sand or not, we've washed up, and it hasn't been a nice sight. The SeaWorld wildlife folks have been there to come up and help with rescue efforts. But the problem is gotten worse over the last 2 weeks. And we're not sure when this algae bloom, this toxic algae bloom, will go away. By the way, the lifeguards did report that there were thousands of people who visited Oceanside over Ironman, and that there were no problems to speak of over the entire weekend they were here. A restaurateur who started feeding locals 43 years ago has come out of retirement and is back in the saddle. Amir is his name, and he opened Pizza Town in 1982, and it's right there on the corner of Washington and then Hill Street, now, of course, Coast Highway. And that spot is now occupied by the barbershop known as Knuckleheads. And that place thrived for over a decade. And then in 1996, Amir moved Pizza Town to 604 Hill Street. And then, as that business grew, that was right next door to the Strand Bar. And I think that's on the same block as Der Wiener Schnitzel there. But anyway, and then in 2005, he took over the Strand Bar at 608 right next door, and the Pizza Town USA became Venito's Pizza and Pasta Italian Cafe. Now, he sold Venito's in 2017, but that operator died late last year, and the place closed for a couple months. And just a couple months ago, Amir came back to reopen Venito's. This time he's changed the name to Venizio's, and it's serving Italian cuisine again with pasta and linguine and lasagna and all that stuff, and pizza. And he expects to get his beer and wine license in place for this weekend. And longtime locals will know that that particular block there, including the alley right behind it, used to be quite a wild place. And of course, it's changed greatly over the years, and it's a lot safer there now. So welcome back, Amir, to the downtown Oceanside area. And he's still at it after 43 years, this time at the former home of Veneto's, now called Venizio's, and we wish him the best. So go by and say hello to Amir if you get a chance at his new old place, Venizio's. The city of Oceanside celebrated the grand opening of the renovated skate park at John Landis Park. They spent over $487,000 on the renovation, including a $125,000 CDBG HUD grant. And good luck on getting those grants going forward. And nevertheless, they got it for this renovation. And congratulations to all the kids and adults who are now skating very happily on a newly renovated skate park at John Landis Park.
No contest. But when it comes to sidewalk 7, there ain't really no contest. When it comes to sidewalk 7, there ain't really no contest. Oh yeah.
Now it's time for the Oside Sidebar, and that's a collection of stories that we put together for you here. And the dredging, which has been set up, they've been setting up the pipes since the 7th of April. Well, guess what? The dredging is going to be starting big time on the 14th, Monday, April 14th, and they're going to start pumping 250,000 cubic yards of sand out of the harbor and onto our beaches, starting at Surfrider. And then they're going to move the pipes further south towards Tyson Street. And lifeguards do say that you do not want to swim directly where they spew all this stuff, because you don't know what kind of schmuck is in the ooze that they're bringing up there, along with the sand that they're bringing out of the harbor. So enjoy it, check it out. It's a lot of fun, a lot of birds, but you don't want to swim right in front of the dredging area. The Ironman had 290,000 people who participated, including 100 of them were professionals, and they also had 500 kids on the kids Ironman the day before, and restaurants were packed. There were no problems. What a great event for Oceanside. Now, Odie's Pizza, which was supposed to open in January, we're told it's going to open any day now, and it's there at 121 North Cleveland in downtown, and it's where the Mock Shack used to be, and then it became Sublime, and now it's going to be remodeled and reopened as Odie's, and we were told that's going to be happening any day now. And do not forget that the API Festival returns to downtown at the Civic Center there, and on Pierview Way and Coast Highway, and that's going to be Saturday, April the 26th from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m., and they took a year off, but now they're back, and API stands for Asian Pacific Islander, and this is not to be confused with the Filipino Festival, which is completely separate. But for the OPI Festival on the 26th of April, they've got food, they've got martial arts, they've got family activities, bands, and performances. And for more information, go to the apifestival.com. Voted the best Indian restaurant by San Diego Magazine this year, Curry and More on Mission Avenue in downtown Oceanside is proof that A-list restaurants are right here in town. Stop by and say hello to owner-operator, chef, greeter, Obi, who actually won the 2020 edition of TV's Beat Bobby Flay. Curry and More makes everything from scratch, including such wonderful favorites as coconut chicken, lamb korma, chicken masala, and mango lassi. Curry and More lunch specials include your entree, naan bread, salad, rice, and lentils. Curry and More on the corner of Freeman and Mission, open for lunch 7 days a week, 12 to 3, and then for dinner 4:30 to 9, except Sunday when they close at 8. Curry and More, an Oceanside treasure. All right, this is episode 36 of the Big Buccaneer Channel, the Oceanside station, and we've been doing this since the first week of August of 2024, and our very first guest we had was this gentleman here, Dmitriy Demidov. Dmitry, by the way, happy birthday, and thanks for rejoining us again here on Oside BBC.
Thank you. I am thrilled to be here again.
Well, cool. Now, when we had you on before, we had other things to talk about. Today, we're talking about your role with the Tri-City Inline Hockey League, of which you're a vice president and a coach, and it's a youth sport, and and you've been involved for a while.
For quite a while, yes, around 15 years.
Now, did you get involved because of your kids or because of your background or both or what?
Well, I've been into winter sports ever since I grew up in the Soviet Union. But yes, my son, who is now an adult and engaged, he grew up there. Yeah. So that's how I started and got engaged as a parent first, then got into coaching, joined the board of directors, and still am on the board serving as a volunteer.
All right. Now, we hear a lot about, other sports, but there's kids out there that like inline hockey. Describe to us a little bit about the sport itself.
Yes. So obviously it is hockey, but we have a rink here in Oceanside. You haven't heard about an ice rink because it's not an ice rink. It's a roller hockey rink. It's got the same goalie gates and around the same size, but it is skated on with help of skates that are not quad skates with four wheels, but the four wheels they're in one row or inline. And therefore, it is called inline roller hockey. The rules are the same. Instead of 5-on-5, it's 4-on-4 players and not checking allowed. So a little bit safer, but you have to use a lot of your skill instead.
Checking is a nice word for
pushing excessively and nudging with excessive force. It can be brutal sometimes on ice.
Sure. And you can ask any of the guys who play ice hockey who have no teeth how brutal it can be, right?
Yes, even on the kids too. It's very taxing. And we say to those who are interested in a safer sport, but still as fun as roller hockey, where there's never-ending action happening, no breaks, right? Is that it is safer than ice hockey, and it's a lot of fun. And therefore, we have children enrolled in our after-school youth program that is co-ed for boys and girls. It is open for ages 4 through 18 years old.
All right. So, Dmitry, the reason we had you on, we invited you on today, is because you were scheduled to speak at a city council meeting recently, and you didn't get to attend. But the meeting was 5 hours long, so you're lucky you didn't even try to attend. But nevertheless, you were scheduled to talk about the city's interaction with your league. Now, tell us what the point of your speech was that you didn't actually make.
Yes, I was scheduled to speak, and I was on the agenda of the monthly meeting of the City Council to address them with a concern that the Sports Department of Parks and Rec was issuing permits for facility rentals for sports in lieu of the sport that the facility was designed for. In other words, it is one thing to rent out a rink or let's say a field that was designed for soccer to football, for example, because it can be used, right? Just ignore the nets. But in case of our rink, it was a different story.
Because?
Well, because we have, as a city liaison, is one of my roles on the board of directors for our nonprofit. I do reservations of the rink for the whole entire permit and make adjustments. And as a league, we have grown over the years. We just celebrated 2 years ago 30 years of nonstop serving the community, educating them about the sport of hockey right here in North County. And we now have a record of 160 players, which translates into more practices, more games. And where are we to serve the community other than the rink? But we are not the only ones there.
So, what was the rub with the city? What's your rub with the city?
Well, we didn't have any rub with the city. It was wonderful, actually, in my opinion, when C.J. Palmer was in charge of sports department of Parks and Rec. There might have been a controversy with maybe with preferential treatment from him towards some other organizations. His child was associated with one of the schools, and so there was some controversy, but it did not really apply to us. In my opinion and in my view, and I expressed it on a number of occasions to Parks and Rec, that they were doing a wonderful job allocating spaces according to the priority list that is in place. I actually have it in my hands, the priority list. And we were always on top of that list compared to the other renters of the rink at Martin Luther King Middle School, by the way, sports park. That's where it is located, in case anybody is wondering. That's the only rink in vicinity. The only closest one would be Escondido.
All right, so it's a permanent rink.
Yes, correct. It's been installed there from the time, I believe, a person creative and responsible for installing that facility was Peter Weiss, back then city manager.
Okay, and now Peter Weiss is himself a supporter of ice hockey, of hockey, right?
Yeah,
Inline hockey.
Not only he's a supporter, he's a player and a coach himself. He has been a coach in our league. He also coaches high schoolers, just like I do. So I see him once or twice a week at our rink. And he's, as you know, a former city manager, mayor of Oceanside,
Yes.
and now a city council member. But yeah, he's been coaching there for about 20 years. And also he plays hockey himself at the adult beer league. Ice.
Okay, now.
It says that on his website, actually. City
okay.
Council members' website.
Very cool. All right. That's cool. Now, except now there's, it's like musical chairs. There's too many players and not enough real estate. Is that right?
That is correct. The players there, you won't believe it. Besides the people who seek to exercise their favorite sport of hockey there, and you need the facility to do that, there are some other groups. For example, the Derby Girls, they have also been renting that facility for years. Now, not only one league, North County Derby Alliance, but also Hidden City Derby Girls. And there's a third one that sometimes rents. They have their own practices. They have their own competitions, tournaments called bouts that they do monthly usually, or twice semi-monthly. And they need the drink practice. Now, they say to us, if they had another facility, all they needed is a flat surface that is smooth. They could use it, but there is none other. And another group is a field hockey there. That means on foot, once a week. They've been renting it also for a number of years. Sounds a little bit strange, but I guess that's okay. They still use hockey sticks and the ball. But sometimes you will see an ice hockey team renting the rink for an extra practice on rollerblades, which can also be understood, although it's unusual. But a soccer team one time was renting the rink. That really raised my eyebrows. I politely asked, as the city liaison of Parks and Recs, to discontinue those practices, because soccer balls are not designed for fragile nets that rip them, and they're only designed for plastic pucks.
So it's not so much the wear and tear on the surface; it's the nets that get worn
of the city property. Yes.
Okay.
And then, but that's not all, because when COVID hit, everybody had to put brakes on, and the facility was actually under a lock, except somebody broke the lock. And literally, broke the lock, and was using that facility for just skating to music. All of a sudden, that transformed into what you might remember from the 70s as disco rollerblading. We call them affectionately as disco people dancing to music, and they started to gather there once a week. As not an organization or a non-profit organization, but simply as a gathering of a community. Since then, they've been kind of holding their weekly skates and adjusting their schedule around our schedules, as we always would get priority for scheduling at the rink. But it has changed. It has changed all recently.
Well, so you keep getting squeezed is what's happening, correct? You keep getting squeezed out, and your times keep getting earlier and earlier.
Yes, you can only schedule practices earlier in the day that much because kids, they don't get enough, from school if you schedule them too early. So you're not able to hold practices. And so when I requested that disco peoples, or they like to call themselves Oceanside roller skating, to schedule some Friday practices, I was told that by the City of Oceanside Parks and Rec Department that they could not do that. And that is the reason why I wanted to speak to the City Council. We have a good relationship, our organization, with Oceanside Roller Skating and the people who organize it. And we have a good relationship with all the Derby girls, and we want to keep it this way. It is the way scheduling done with the staff of Oceanside Parks and Rec that we have an issue with. They have had a change a year and a half ago or so, where the head of sports department, C.J. Palmer, left, and now with Mr. Manuel Gonzalez, who is in charge of Park and Rec, he kind of spearheaded that for now, negotiations with all the sports groups. And yeah, in writing on December 19th, 2024, and then again February 20th, 2025, and on the phone again on March 3rd, 2025, I've requested from Parks and Rec to please give us Fridays for practices. We now have 160 kids. And I was told no, and we're in negotiations with Oceanside Roller Skating to do the activities that they've been doing since COVID, since they discovered the rink and kind of moved in, which is fine, but under sponsorship of the City of Oceanside. What does that mean? Well, that is a big deal, because I have in my hands a City of allocation priorities. Mm-hmm. And of course, there's a category A, B, C, D, E, depending if you're for-profit, non-profit, resident group or non-resident group, you get different priorities. And at our rink, we were always top priority, which was Oceanside resident youth groups, such as youth sports leagues, Girls, Boy Scouts, youth civic clubs. They were under that category. And then that's a category C. Category B is Oceanside Unified School District programs. So if they decide to rent the city's facilities, they get obviously priority. And the number one was actually city-sponsored programs. So what was negotiated under our noses, and this is what, I have a good relationship with Oceanside Roller Skating, but under our noses, the impression is that even though we had the priority of getting the rinks at the time of December and January of this year, we did not get our request honored under these existing guidelines to get the extra practice for reasons unknown to me. And eventually, there was a negotiated deal between Parks and Rec and Oceanside Roller Skating to have their program that has been struggling really to come under the structure of a nonprofit organization, to get their own liability insurance, to finally be sponsored by the City of Oceanside. So now it's officially a city-sponsored activity or program. So we don't have the priority anymore.
Is that the disco group you're telling me about? Or?
Yes.
Okay. That doesn't smell nice.
No. I just think that under the new leadership of Manuel Gonzalez at the City of Oceanside Parks and Rec, who was very keen on establishing the rules this one rule of priorities at the time that we had our priority kind of where it needed to be. Those rules, they were not observed.
Well, have you tried to reach out to Manny Gonzalez?
Yes, I have.
And?
Well, I don't really have an explanation why negotiations took place in the first place with Oceanside roller skating. It's really, their business to do that.
Well, but it's the city's decision to take them into their bosom, next to under their wing, right, and sponsor them.
Yes, and that is wonderful. I mean, if there was a facility to do that, let's say an indoor skating facility or a club to do that, then it's wonderful. But this is a place with hockey nets and the boards designed for hockey.
All right, now Dmitry Demidov. This is OsideBBC.com, the Big Buccaneer Channel, the Oceanside station. We're speaking with Dmitry Demidov of the Tri-City Inline Hockey, and you even have another hockey rink that you own, right?
Yes, until recently, just to correct you, that we have owned until recently. Yes, we have had it for a number of years.
And you just couldn't keep paying for rent?
Correct. You see, having one rink in vicinity all the way to Escondido is kind of like not ideal.
Right.
Because we're not the only group that wants to rent this facility, obviously. And so, but we actually had a donation from 4S Ranch in the early 2000s of a rink of an equivalent size, which consisted of boards and strengthened glass, which is even better than the rink at the MLK Park. And we used that equipment, which is a $100,000 rink, was donated to us by Mission San Luis Rey for a number of years because, as I mentioned, we were a 32-year-old league, a lot of history, and for a number of years, this is where our practices were. And then since 2013, we moved to MLK, and this was our rink ever since. And the reason why we had to do that is because, remember, next to Mission San Luis Rey, there are some residential buildings that have been built.
Yes.
So they had to spare that room for their parking lot. And we had to pack up the donated rink into storage, and it was a big storage facility. And we were paying something in the vicinity of $350 a month for years and years and years, about 10 years, until I finally found a buyer a year and a half ago and sold it. A gentleman from Fresno picked it up for a youth program. But before that happened, I had approached the city of Oceanside, and I suggested that if they were to provide land, and that's all we needed really with the surface, that we could have another rink at the city of Oceanside.
And it doesn't need to be indoors.
No, it did not. And there is room, obviously, at Dale Corazon Park.
Sure.
There's still some land available for potential development. But the answer was, no, we're not interested because that would result in us, the city of Oceanside, having to pave, installed the special, asphalt, then also facilities, infrastructure for parking, restrooms, and that's too big of an investment.
In the meantime, they want to endorse and sponsor disco roller rink.
Yes, and this is something that I don't want to talk about the liabilities and potential risk that the city took upon themselves. But because when you're on skates, I don't know if you've ever been on skates on quads or inline, but you have to have balance in the first place. But this is for all ages too.
Yeah.
What is going on over there? But the rink was basically that idea went away of a second rink upon looking at the current rink. We also requested a few improvements to the existing facility. For example, it gets flooded during rains, and other rinks, such as the rinks, and that's the official name of the rinks in Irvine, and also the ones in Escondido, they actually have roofs. So I requested roofs on a number of occasions. First in 2023 to use Measure X money to install a roof to the Parks and Rec. That fell on the deaf ears. That was in writing. I also requested that a permanent weatherproof scoreboard is permanently installed at the MLK rink, and that was at the end of last year. So all I was told is that it was going to be forwarded to some person who would be responsible in that, and that's the last I heard of it.
All right, Dmitry Demidov of the Tri-City Inline Hockey League. You tell us about your upcoming games, if anyone who would like to see you on the 12th and the 15th.
Oh, yes. So the 12th is first coming up. That's a Saturday. It's a game full of games. It's a day full of games starting 8 a.m. and ending with 3 p.m. Anybody from the public is welcome to come and witness the games. There's no charge. But you will see little kids from as early as 4 years old playing in the earlier hours, and then older and older. We have mites, squirts, peewees, 6 peewee teams, and it ends at 3 p.m. Whole day long with some good music, lots of parents cheering, a lot of fun. And then on the 15th is high school games, which is the next level up. We call them bantams, some older middle schoolers and high schoolers, and that'll be at 6:30 and 7:30 p.m. And I will coach one of those teams.
Very cool. Dmitry Demidov, thank you for all that you do for all the kids in the Tri-City Inline Hockey League. And it's good to have you back here, and happy birthday, sir.
Appreciate it.
All right.
Delicious.
I like it too. Yes, I do like it.
Delicious.
It's time for happy hour. That time on the Big Buccaneer channel when we highlight an oceanside eatery or night spot that features food or drink specials during happy hour or any time they choose. This week, it's one of the best views in town. It's 333 Pacific, overlooking the Oceanside Pier. And their happy hour is 7 days a week, 3 to 6. Now they've got specialty cocktails that are specially priced, either $9 or $11. And the most popular ones is the key lime pie for $9, which is incredible. I've had it. Or something called Pretty in Pink. Those are two of the most popular $9 cocktails you can get during happy hour from 3 to 6 p.m. They also have $10 glass of wine or $8 pint of beer. Now for $10, there's food specials during happy hour, 3 to 6 in the afternoon. You've got calamari, lobster bisque, charred Brussels sprouts, an order of fries. Of course, they doctor them up. Or the oyster shooter. And that's at 333 Pacific, overlooking the Oceanside Pier.
Oh, have some more. Get the waiter and bring I'll put on the paper hat. Get out the lamp. I even like the cork.
And now it's time for a segment of the Big Buccaneer Channel where we drill, baby, drill. We'll take a deep dive into Oceanside's deep, rich past. Welcome to the Big Buccaneer Channel's Deep Roots Deep Dive. Now it's time for the deep dive, and here is our promised sort of a little secret we were hiding till the end of the show here, and that is the closing of a longtime restaurant sort of in downtown Oceanside called the Rise and Grind. They're scheduled to close their doors on April the 14th, and they have been serving breakfast and lunch. They're at 236 South Coast Highway. Now, the reason that we are talking about it here is because of the history of that particular place at 236 South Coast Highway. You see, it started off in the 50s as a Studebaker showroom. There was a car called the Studebaker, yes, and that was the Oceanside showroom for the Studebaker. In the 60s, it became the Oceanside Motor Supply. In the 80s, it was the Hill Street Auto Parts. And then it was closed for a while. It resurfaced as a kayak store in 2007. And then it became a Boost mobile store and a Cricket mobile store. Those are two separate enterprises there. Until finally it became a restaurant called Exhale. And then it became Rise and Grind. And that ends on April 14th. Now, the folks who own that building happen to also own local Tap House, which is just south of Rise and Grind there on the corner. And they have a broker, and the listing is that you can have the place for $13,000 a month. And if you take over, you got to buy the liquor license, which goes for $200,000, which is a little higher than normal. However, it does include all the fixtures and the furniture and all the equipment. So, Rise and Grind, RIP. Their last day is April the 14th. Now it's time for the Oceanside Meter Reader, the segment when we gift a local person, place, or phenomenon on its degree of wonderfulness or worthlessness, with a rating from K Magnifique down to nuclear dumpster fire. Now, for this one, we need a little bit of background. I was born and raised here in Oceanside. And my father was not part of the Marine Corps. He was in the U.S. Navy, and he served during the Korean War on the USS Pickerel, which was a submarine. And when he came back, he went to the predecessor to MiraCosta College, which was the Oceanside Carlsbad Junior College, which is where he met my mom, who was 4 years younger, and the rest is history. But nevertheless, I have grown up around the military all my life, because you live in Oceanside, you're right next door to Camp Pendleton, And so the fact is that the military life sort of has been baked into all of us who were born and raised here in Oceanside. And we grew up around military families and the military way of life. And we knew what the USMC stood for, and that included racial equality. That was the bottom line from the get-go. Even when racial equality in the early 60s and later 70s still had a ways to go nationwide, in the Marine Corps, it seemed to be the way of life from the beginning. And we knew that the military, USMC specifically, upheld valor, honor, and discipline. And that sort of, if it didn't rub off on us, we at least knew that it was there. Now, when I was in the Boy Scouts, there was a kid, his last name was Willis. Well, his dad, who's no longer with us, was in the, I think he was a lifer, which means you serve 20 years and you're a lifer. You're considered a lifer. And I remember when Lieutenant Callie, for those of us of a certain age will remember that there was a problem where Lieutenant Callie in the Army, I think it was, oversaw some massacring of some women and children in Vietnam, and it was a big deal. And I remember Mr. Willis saying, I don't remember ever having any orders. This is when it was news at the time. And he said, I don't remember us ever getting any orders to murder women and children. And that just stuck in my mind. Like, here's an upstanding member of the United States Marine Corps. And I don't know, it just stuck with me. And even as Vietnam and Iraq and even Afghanistan, even though those involvement, our involvement in those conflicts was up for question, we always knew that the Marine Corps, what they stood for, and that they were always loyal. And even if the war itself seemed iffy, the guys who served it, meaning the Marine Corps themselves, there's nothing iffy about those guys. They were always honorable men and women. And, those of us who grew up here, if you're cynical about it, you can say, well, we like Camp Pendleton because it ensures we're not going to have development all along the coast between San Clemente and Oceanside. It's going to be protected. Well, that's true. And but the reality is that growing up here, you also get to experience the military way of life. Now comes President Trump, and he has decimated the veteran services, firing all kinds of people when it seems like we needed more people to work in veteran services. Well, he just got rid of a bunch of people, and he fired many high-ranking members of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, including the Chief of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the chairman or whatever you call him. And it's somehow interesting that he got rid of them because they were either a minority or a woman. And he's decimated the veteran support from the federal government, which is, I find, to be reprehensible. These guys always served our country knowing that the country would be there for them. Well, guess what? It's not. And, of course, the guys and the women in the Marine Corps, they don't revolt because they're Marines. They don't. They can't. They just suck it up and endure these incredible, difficult times with that are brought to us thanks to President Trump. And you can't fathom how these flunkies that Mr. Trump has brought on now oversees our military, including the USMC. And it's shameful and it's horrible. And but the Marines are still there, and the Trump administration, this too shall pass. So, to the current administration that is attempting to kick sand in the face of the military, you get our worst possible Oceanside meter reader ranking. It's a viral virus. It's a soiled diaper on the picnic table. It's this week's nuclear dumpster fire.
Oh no, oh no, oh no.
That wraps it for the Big Buccaneer Channel, www.osidebbc.com, where we create a new show for you pretty much every Wednesday. And we've done that since the beginning of August of 2024. And thank you very much today to Dmitriy Demidov, who joined us here in our studios, to Christy Hawthorne, the Oceanside historian extraordinaire, and to Von Ramirez, our audio engineer for the Big Buccaneer Channel. And until next week, this is Ken Treadway saying, thank you, Oceanside.